Hi, good afternoon. My name is Barbara Butler. I'm the host of Experience, Strength, and Hope. And tonight I'm having a conversation here with Keisha Sibert. And we're going to talk a little bit about her journey and what she's been discovering about her plan, God's plan for her life. Keisha is a mother of two. She's an entrepreneur. She's a blogger. And she's also a business owner of Cupcake Wishes and Birthdays. Keisha, can you tell them a little bit more about yourself?
Yes. So, like Barbara said, I am a mom of two, and I have a college age daughter, high school age son, and we are just kind of going through life right now post my husband's passing. He's been gone for about a year, and I've basically been living my life through that at this moment. Just trying to get through it, really. As far as myself, definitely, still trying to work a regular full-time job, and sort of taking a back burner to the business side of things, with my business, Cupcake Wishes and Birthday Dreams. But here and there, I will find time to, write on through blogging, I guess posting on other people's blogs, and then running my shop on Etsy. So those are the two parts of my business that I'm able to work on right now, which allows me to, still maintain space for some creativity in my life, and then still have some additional stream of income through that. And then the rest of my life is just being a mom.
Okay. So recently I called to check on you to see how you were doing with the loss of your husband. And you shared with me a lot of things that was going on. Mm-hmm. And I said, I think this is something good that we can share with other people, because I believe that your story could help somebody else, mm-hmm. if they're going through the loss of something or just dealing with circumstances of things that happen in life, right? So I know that earlier this year, you told me that, you were still trying to deal with the loss of your husband, and then something major happened in your house. Mm-hmm. Can you elaborate a little bit on that?
Yeah. So there was a flood in my house. It started as what I thought was just a small leak. Mm-hmm. It started in our kitchen, under the sink. I called in a plumber to come take a look at it, but I noticed that the floor in my kitchen was wet. So I just thought, the floor got damaged or whatever. But for a while, we had this terrible smell coming up through the drain and in the vents. Mm-hmm. And it just smelled like rotten eggs. So, I just assumed that it was just in the air vents and coming out through a pump that we had in the house, and maybe just the water was old, and right. I didn't know. I had no idea. What was happening is, when we would run our kitchen faucet, water would leak under the house. Some pump catches water that's underground and ejects it out of the house. Mm-hmm. And while that was happening, what was causing the smell was raw sewage from the kitchen sink. Not toilet water, thank mm-hmm. God, but raw sewage from the kitchen line going under the house. So there was a break in the line under the house somewhere. And what would happen, because even though the pump was running, it wasn't working and functioning properly. So our basement kept getting flooded repeatedly. Now, I know this is crazy, but I had no idea this was happening, because I was not going into the basement. Okay. My husband always did the laundry. Mm-hmm. I never had a need to go down there. My children's rooms are in there, but the water was not going out that far at times that they were there to see any water coming out, other than one time. So, and it's not unusual for us to have had floods in the basement before, but those were always handled and managed, and it was usually because the pump may have stopped working or got clogged. But in this case, the problem was coming from the kitchen sink going under the house, and then the water just kept coming up through the pump. So it's just causing consistent floods over and over. And then that buildup of sewage water under the house was causing the smell.
Right.
So normally anything that would kind of malfunction in the house, my husband would take care of it and it would be done and I wouldn't have to worry about it. But obviously with him not being here anymore, you know, I have to call somebody in to handle it. And so call the plumber in. The plumber comes in. He checks it out. He's like, well, I can, you know, fix the leak under your sink. He's like, that's not your only problem. You know, that's when he was explaining the whole situation with the water in the main drain spilling into the house under the ground, going into the sump pump, and the water was spilling out. So he's like, I can't really help you with that. You're going to have to call somebody in to handle this, a bigger job than what I can do. So we got a plumber in to reroute the pipes to the front of the house. So they found a whole different way to reroute the kitchen sink pipe out to the front of the house as opposed to going underground because the house is older. So I guess during the time when it was built, it was standard to direct pipes under the actual concrete of the house. So without having to break through the foundation of the house, they just made it go somewhere else. And connected it to a different pipe in the house, which worked great. But the other problem was, well, now you have all this water damage in your basement, and you may have mold and all this other stuff. So call somebody in. I call my insurance. They come in, send the people in to fix all of that. And it's just like at that point on, going forward, it's just been nonstop for me. Literally.
You mean like one thing after another?
One thing after another.
Okay.
And it's just, it has not stopped. And there's been plenty of times, you know, where I've just, like, just ready to throw in the towel, ready to give up, and not even really knowing what to do most times. And I have truly, truly, truly been tested in this past year, starting with, you know, not just 2023, but like the last 12, 13 months. Just starting with his passing, prior to his passing, because he was really sick and had to be in the hospital for a period of time. And then just dealing with what is just, I call curveballs, you know, that life throws at you every now and again. But my curveballs were happening once a week.
Jeez. Okay.
My curveballs were happening once a week. And I've never had to deal with so much happening, what feels like all at one time, for this long period of time by myself. I've always had somebody nearby or close to me that would help direct me or ground me so that I didn't freak out, which was my husband in most cases. You know, if it wasn't my husband, it was my grandmother, and she's no longer here either. So I just didn't have that anymore. And
like I was telling you, I think you've always been strong, but you've just never been, the test has never been put on you for you to see how strong you really were.
Right.
So with all these things happening back to back now, I think it's showing you how strong you are and all the stuff that you can handle, because I believe anything that's put on you is not to break you, but to make you stronger, right?
Yeah.
So I think that we sometimes rely on other people for stuff because we think we're not strong enough to handle it on our own, right? You agree with that?
I do.
Okay.
And that's the interesting thing, too, because when my husband was alive, I definitely believed, oh, I'm strong, I'm tough. You know, I can handle anything. You know, and it was because of how I was raised. My grandmother, like, she was a boss lady. Like, she just, she was married, but she was always in charge. She was very direct, very stern. She handled her business, and she just, to me, I never saw her break. I never saw her crack. So for me, while my husband was alive and we were faced with different things that happened, I mean, I was just like, oh, we'll be fine. Everything's going to work out. It's going to be, we won't have to worry about this. It's going to work out.
Right.
I don't know how, but it's going to work out. And it always did. But I believe that, I don't want to say I was naive. I think I felt very self-assured and reassured in knowing that these things worked out because I wasn't alone in that space.
Okay.
And sharing your life with your spouse. So in those moments, I felt very strong and very capable. But I think that I pulled my strength from my husband. And knowing that now, it kind of brought me through this revelation as I was dealing with everything that I was dealing with. Like, just to give like kind of an overview of what happened, it literally went from, he passed away. One of my cars kind of fizzled out on me. I don't know what happened. It just went haywire. Dashboard lit up. The steering wasn't working right. I kind of parked the car and I was like, I'll figure it out later. That was December of last year. January came. I had to, deal with the emptiness of not having my husband near. That was a very hard month for me. I was not in my right mind. I couldn't think. I couldn't focus. I barely ate. I always slept. I did not want to do anything if it was not for my children. I probably I believe if it wasn't for my kids, I probably would have died of a broken heart because that's how deep I sunk, just in grief. I'm blessed to have a stepdaughter who just constantly checked on me, and friends who constantly checked on me. You constantly checked on me, constantly, and family that just made sure I was okay. So that helped, but things still happened. February, my car got broken into for the first time. Then I had the flood that happened. And then we found out my daughter got accepted to college, but we hadn't found out because that was her first choice. She'd already been accepted to one school in January, but her first choice, we didn't find that out until, maybe March. And by that time, there's sort of like this deadline issue with housing. So we weren't sure if we were going to get her in the housing or whatever needed to happen. So that was a little bit of a, bump, but we pressed on. Got a flat tire.
Sometimes it feels like when it rains, it pours,
Got a flat tire. But then we found out she didn't have housing. And then we were hit with this like $9,000 bill for college, which I'm like, wait a minute, what? She's supposed to have financial aid. Try to work through financial aid. Then find out I can't register for tags on my car because my husband passed away and both of our names are on our vehicles. So I worked with the DMV and a loan company to try and figure all that out. And, one person saying, we're sending this stuff in. The DMV is like, we're not getting it. That went on for 2 to 3 weeks. I probably visited the DMV in that time probably like 7 times. That's more than enough times. Like, they saw my face a lot. And my insurance company, when it came to the cars, took my car off of the insurance, took both cars. So it was like riding around with no insurance, and I didn't even know, and then he wasn't supposed to do that. So I had to deal with him, and he's yelling at me. They're just like one thing after that. I had a lot of problems with the cars. We had to go live in a hotel while the work was being done on the house.
And then you said somebody tried to steal your car.
And then somebody recently tried to steal the car again, like the night before Thanksgiving, which was the day after the 1 year anniversary of my husband's passing. Oh. So it was just like, it was just one thing after another. And I'm sure there are more things that happen, but the bulk of it is that it literally kept happening. Like every week I would be like, what's going to happen this week? And kind of like through that, I definitely had quite a few breakdowns because it was just, I couldn't take it anymore. Mm-hmm. I didn't know how to handle a lot of this stuff because my husband was a person who just took care of everything. And, you know, I knew there would be a day probably where I would not have that, but in my mind, I was like, I got it. I'll be fine.
Now, do you regret letting your husband take care of everything now?
Not regret, but I know better now. I know that this was the lesson that I learned in this.
Okay.
I know that as a man or as my husband, it was his role to do these things that he was supposed to do, and I'm grateful for it. There's a lot in him having done those things that I did learn from, and oftentimes when things come up, I can hear him telling me, you know, do this, do that, do this, do that, you know. But I know now I put entirely too much faith in my husband. And my lesson is that, yes, here on earth, your husband is your go-to person. But I was doing a Bible study. A friend of mine, Emily, had invited me to do a Bible study when she knew I was going through all this stuff. And so we were reading The Purpose-Driven Life. Mm-hmm. And I don't even remember exactly what the wording was of this particular, you know, part of the book was saying. It's basically like, you know, kind of putting all your faith and trust in God. And, you know, this is what we do, you know. And I thought that's what I was always doing. I thought I lived my life that way because, like I said, I would always think, oh, it's going to work out. And I always felt it was going to work out because I was like, God's got it. That's right. Just, you know, my mantra. But I realized I wasn't even putting my faith in God. I put all my faith in my husband. And when I had that revelation, I just broke down in tears. And I cried and I cried and I cried because I knew my faith was misplaced. And there's nothing wrong with me trusting my husband or believing that my husband will handle things. But I should never have put all my faith in my husband the way I did. I put it in him so much that I thought that I would not be able to survive without him here. And literally, it you know, kind of had a moment, well, I wouldn't even call it a moment. When he passed away, I was with him. And I had to hold his hand and walk him through letting go to transition. And it was a very peaceful moment and experience. And I think what got me through that is I had a friend call me out the blue. I was on the phone with you. Yeah. I was on the phone with you. It was 3 people that called me that morning. I spoke to my cousin Steve, who is a pastor, and prayed with me. My friend Danielle called me. And she said, I was on her mind. She called and prayed with me. And then you called, and it was literally, he just turned and he looked at me, and I was just like, he's going to go. You know, you were calling to check on me. And I just held his hand, and I let him know we would be okay. And I walked him through this transition. He left, and I just sat there with it for a minute. When I got the nurse, told her, you know, they came and checked on him, whatever. And then, you know, called my stepdaughter and let her know. When she showed up, I was fine. I was just kind of I was at peace with everything. But then she mentioned my kids, and then I fell out. I left my body. So at the hospital, I had a seizure. I I've had seizures before. I did not think that what I was experiencing was a seizure.
Okay.
I believe what happened to me in that moment is I became so overwhelmed with the reality that he was not here, and that I had to do something alone. And that one thing that I had to do was tell our kids he was gone. I couldn't do it. Because how am I going to now do something without the person that's been here the whole time?
There, right.
So I think my body just decided, nope, that's it. I've had enough. I had what the doctors told me I had a seizure. I stayed in the hospital for a few hours. It's something I had dealt with in, some years before that. But in my mind, as this was happening, I thought that I was aware of everything going on. But they were telling me you were not here. Like, you were not conscious. But what I'm seeing, everything going around me was happening. But they're telling me, no, we were talking to you. You would not open your eyes. You would not speak. You did not do anything. You had brain activity, but you were not here.
Wow.
So I think I had connected to my husband so much that I completely and totally I put all my faith in him, and I had trusted him that much, and I had believed in him that much. And when I was doing this Bible study, through the Purpose-Driven Life and through this team of women that I had gotten to know, I realized I had put my faith in the wrong person. And you could not have told me that, I did my Bible study every day. I was in the Word. I was reading scripture. I mean, wake up and I do my devotionals. You could not have told me when my husband was here that I didn't put all my faith in God, and that, I didn't trust everything, But that whole thing showed me I did not have the amount of faith and trust that I thought I had. And it just broke me down because part of the purpose-driven life is sort of surrendering to God and to his will, and you live for God. And you have to kind of learn what that means. You have to go through something to know what that means. And I don't think I knew until I had to go through everything. Right. I know that I have prayed and I've asked for certain things in my life so that I could grow closer to God. And there's things that have happened that stand out to me that sort of earmark or bookmark how I even got to that point at all.
But I think in marriage, a lot of couples put most of their faith in their spouse.
Yeah.
Well, our husband is the head, but
right.
He's supposed to put his faith in God.
And I think what I've learned and what I know now is that that's fine, and there's nothing wrong with that because that's how it should be. I think perhaps where my husband and I missed the mark on it is we together as a husband and wife didn't put God first in our marriage. I think we thought we did.
Right.
Because I know he, was a believer and I was a believer, and we would sit down every Sunday and watch church on TV. But we did not pray together. I know for sure, and in all honesty, that I was worshiping on my own, and in my own way, which you can do too, but we didn't come together that way.
Right.
I
think that's important.
It's very important. Yeah. So, I'm clear now that my faith has to go towards God first.
Trump
in
everything.
All things. Yes. Yeah. And that's an undeniable thing. And I will say that I've realized that it's not just something that you can say and hope it happens. It's something that you constantly have to be mindful of and practice.
Yes.
Because
life is going to happen.
Life is going to happen. And I have to constantly talk myself through honoring God by remaining faithful. And I've had so many experiences that have shown me that God is still with you. Like, he's not gone. Yeah. You just have to know it and recognize it for what it is and not be afraid. I was reading my devotion this morning, and I think it was talking about angels, or not being anxious for anything, and somehow angels were brought into the discussion, in the devotional. But I just had this moment. I was like, it's just kind of beautiful to sit back and know that you can give over your worries, your anxiety, your fears,
yes, God,
your stress, your hurt, your pain, your grief, the burdens. There's something very beautiful in the surrendering of that to God. And not even, you don't have a face that you can put, to God. You don't have anything tangible per se that you can point to. Just the existence and knowing that he's there and ever present in your life is just very, it's just something beautiful in that. And the only thing I can really think to call it is just the surrendering of all of that to him.
I think some people like to be in control all the time. Mm-hmm. So sometimes some people have problems surrendering because they want to control everything, not knowing that whatever it is that you're going through, if you put it in God's hand, he's already worked it out.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
And that's so true.
Yes, that we just have to trust. And sometimes you just got to trust the process. You know what I'm saying?
That's what my daughter always tells me. Mommy, just trust the process.
Trust the process.
Like, what you know about trusting the process? But it is true. And I go back to how I was raised. And I said my grandmother was just tough as nails. She was on the ball. She was a boss lady. She controlled everything. Mm-hmm. But something about her, my grandmother, when I remember, I always tell you, I was just raised in church. And so she, I was at her side from day one in church. Like, she carried me to church in a shoebox when I was a baby. So her faith helped me with my faith, but not in the way that I always thought it did.
Right.
And now that I've been going through everything that I've been going through, just her words are coming to light now. Well, just find you a good Bible, teaching church, and, stay in your Bible. Just read your Bible. She never forced. She forced church on me. But she never.
That was the only way back then.
She forced church on me, but she never forced Christianity on me or spirituality on me. She just guided me with gentle nudges to, just read your Bible and pray and talk to God. And she didn't have rules about how it was done. Mm-hmm. And now, with, she's not here anymore, but she's still here. So I hear her also telling me, this is just what I've been trying to tell you the whole time. Just do these things. And so through my grief, I was like, I don't know how I'm going to get through this. And, I had another friend who had experienced the loss of her husband, and she introduced me to a program called Grief Share. Mm-hmm. And so, it's done through church. Yep. So I connected with a local group here through one of the local churches. And those people, the facilitators, have become like my church aunties and big sisters, and they've also helped reel me back in. Mm-hmm. Because they're like I said, with all this stuff going on in the house, I had the flood in April, but just 2 months ago, while they were getting ready to rebuild everything in the basement, another flood happened because it was raining and the electricity went out.
So
Pumps.
Some pump didn't work.
Not working. And I walked in the house. I'm, go check on my house because we're in the hotel. And I go to the mailbox. I'm opening up a letter from my mortgage company telling me my mortgage is going back up another $200. Mind you, it just went up about $100 like a month and a half or 2 months before that. So now it's going to go up now another $200. And I'm like, God, no, what next? And I opened the door and there's water all in my basement. And I just looked and I bust out in tears. I cried so
I probably would have
hard.
looked and then closed the door. And
That's exactly what I did.
Yeah,
I closed the door and
door.
I went in my car. I just bust out in tears. And my daughter's like, Mommy, what's wrong? I said, I just can't do it anymore. I cannot do it anymore. I had to call my contractor and say, I don't know what to do. I'm crying with them on the phone. And they're like, please calm down, Mrs. Sibert. It's going to be okay. I'm like, it's not. It's not going to be okay. There's just these things that have happened. And every single time, I'm like, what am I going to do? And yes, I had this revelation about, God being the one thing that I needed to have full faith in, but it still wasn't clicking. Like, I had the revelation, but I don't know. I guess sometimes you still have to, experience things for yourself to really see him at work.
Yeah.
They were praying over me. I mean, they prayed with me for a good 3 hours because, I told them, I said, I would never do anything to harm myself or anything like that because I just, I'm not taking myself out. I said, but when I tell you I'm ready to go to sleep and not wake up, I'm done. Like, I'm tired. And like, I don't know how much more of this that I can take. And, it's just for me alone by myself because I felt so alone. That hurt because while you may have friends come check on you and call you, you have your children there, you're still looking at them as babies.
Right.
I still felt alone because I was clinging to my husband. I was clinging to this idea of him being my be all and end all. He is not my Alpha and Omega. He is not. And it was just like God was just like, can you just focus on me, focus on me. And then I went to church one Sunday, and one of the I told you to call them like big sister aunties from my grief share group went up to the altar call, and she just started praying over me again, and audibly, as she's praying over, she started speaking in tongues, and she just said, I'm God, you're my daughter. I'm God, you're my daughter. And it was just like...
You received it.
I received it. And that's kind of what filled me, because then I was like, okay, you're not alone. You're not alone. It's okay. So I've had to really open myself up in a way spiritually that I never had before. And I mentioned, there were points in my life in the last few years when I asked for God or to show me what I needed to see in order to be closer to him. And, it's happening. When my husband passed away, there was a lot of anger and resentment for a number of reasons. Like, I didn't know how sick he was.
Like anger at
the
him. Situation at him?
At him. It was at
because
the situation. He was sick. At situations and circumstances surrounding, him, dealing with family members, just a lot of reflection, like, why didn't he do this? Why didn't he say that? It caused so much confusion and chaos between people in the family because nobody knew the truth. And the little bit of truth that I knew didn't matter at that point because there's already this dysfunction and this separation between family members that I'm the outsider.
But so you're the wife.
I'm the wife, but there's not a level of trust built up there where if I say, hey, this is what's going on, that it's going to be believed. So anything I say is going to always be met with opposition. And my thing is, you shouldn't have to question anything I'm telling you about him. But even if you have to, go outside of that and speak to the hospital staff, doctors and nurses. Go ahead, please.
Right.
And that wasn't good enough. So that helped me realize, well, it wouldn't have mattered anyway. People are going to believe what they want to believe. But all of that compounded, and it made me angry at him. And so I had to work through that. And then working through that, I just kind of like, when anybody would ask me, how you doing? I would just go on these rants. Like, I'm so angry. He didn't tell me how sick he was. I didn't know he had this condition or that condition. He knew 6 whole years ago, and I'm only finding out last month, that he had this. I'm trying to, look for keys to the lawnmower, the riding mower, and I find an envelope, and I know he left it there. I know he left it there so that I could find it. That shows all his conditions that he was aware of. The document from the hospital that showed.
But do you think he didn't share his condition with you because he thought maybe you couldn't handle it?
I think he probably knew me better than I knew myself. I think he knew my go-to, my norm when things happen is to freak out. And, he may not have wanted me to go through that. And then, I have to consider also that I had seizures. Remember I told you I had seizures. So he probably thinking, I can't tell her this. She might, start seizing up again. She's getting better. I don't want her to get sick and be back in the hospital. We both can't get sick. Because he used to always tell me that we both can't be sick. And in his own way, he tried to tell me things, but I always took it as, no, you gotta have faith. He would always say, babe, I'm dying. I'd be like, don't say that, because we only knew about his heart condition and his kidney failure. He was being treated for both. So you think, you go to the doctor regularly. We know people who have kidney failure and heart conditions, and they've been living for like years. Even his nephrologist is saying, oh, no, you can, survive for a long
people
time.
live a long time with this.
And, I just didn't know. And I think back also, like, all these times when he was saying X, Y, and Z, I'm like, why didn't it click? But I'm the type of person, like, I always tell people, I was like, I'll miss a stinky fart. Things will go right over my head. That's how I'm so tapped out sometimes. I will miss a stinky fart. It's just me. So if he didn't come out and just say I have cancer. If he didn't say that, they found cancer. He didn't tell me. He told me they didn't find anything. His nurse slipped up one day and mentioned it. That's how I found that out. But there was like other stuff with his vascular system that I didn't find out until he was in the hospital, but he's known that for years. And so that...
He probably was trying to protect you.
I think he was trying to protect me. I think he was also very afraid. He did try and tell me in his own way. I just, held on to anger for a long time, which is normal. But I remember somebody who I was ranting to called me. It was somebody I just, kind of started to get to know, and she was, listening to me. She said, I'll call you real quick. And I said, sure. She said, listen. She said, if you never want to talk to me again, I understand. She said, but God put this on my heart to tell you, and I would be so wrong if I didn't say it to you, because I can't unhear it anymore. Like I keep hearing it over and over. And she says, sometimes God removes people out of your life because he's heard conversations about you when you were not in the room, and he has a greater purpose for you. And I mean,
my God,
I was like, what is she talking about? Like, and she's like, and I'm sorry if that offends you, you know, and I'm sorry if it's hurtful. When I was like, well, no, I'm not offended or hurt by it. It's just, I didn't know what to do with that. And as things happened over the last year, I recall when I was sick and in the hospital, my husband had to take care of me for about 1.5 years because I kept seizing. So every few weeks, I would just literally, my body would be like, nope, would just, you know, seize up. And I couldn't drive. So he would have to drive me back and forth to work. Now, in hindsight, imagine having to take care of somebody and you're going through what you're going through. And you're not even letting me know.
Right.
So I have no idea how sick he is at this point. I have no clue. I just think he's being a curmudgeon. He just, what is he so angry for? It's just, you know, getting in the car, coming across the bridge, scoop me up, we go back to the house. He did not want to have to take that commute. And so I remember feeling so overwhelmed by him. And then at the time, other people in his family who sort of just were negative. I'll just leave it at that. Were negative and causing a lot of stress to come into our household and into our home. At the time, we just didn't need it, you know. And I felt, again, overwhelmed and overburdened. And my prayer really was, you know, just please reveal to me those people in my life who don't mean me well. And I was like, and if it's not meant for me, for these people to be in my life, please, you know, help me deal with it or unburden me from it. And I don't know if his passing was part of that prayer answered, or if in order for me to be unburdened by other people in my life, he had to leave. Regardless of what it might have been, it's all part of God's plan, and I accept it. I accept it. And I realize that God will definitely answer your prayers, but in ways that you never imagine. Ever imagine. And I'm okay with it. I'm okay with it. You know, I've had to lose people who I was very close to, you know, and that's hard. But I look at it and I'm like, there was like a lot of toxic
relationships.
That were in that. And maybe perhaps because of what I'm going through right now, those people had to be removed from my life in this moment so that maybe I could understand what my purpose is, you know, and how to get to a place of surrender myself to God. So that I could be the vessel he wants me to be, you know, for his message. And that is, like I said, that's something I thought about this morning, and I kind of cried about it because I was like, how beautiful is it that you get to do this and to understand what God is trying to do in your life. And I, like I said, I have learned so much going through everything. And I, you know, one of those days when I was just like, God, what are you doing? Like, what is this for? I don't get it. You know, I wasn't cussing him out, but I was like, look, I don't bother anybody. I'm doing what I'm supposed to do. I was like, I'm minding my business. I was like, everybody, you know, just wants to try and come for me. And I was like, and the devil is busy. I was like, I'm not even bothering him. I was like, what is it? Like, I'm getting up every day, you know, I'm putting my faith in you. You know, I was like, you got me out here feeling like Job. I'm not, you know, I don't get it. I was like, I don't get it. And I tell you, Barbara, like clear as day, he said, I'm doing it because I need this testimony to be what brings other people to me.
My God.
And I sat there and I was like, okay, I get it. I was like, can you just ease up a little bit because it's tough? He's like, you need to help bring other people to me. And I still don't know how that's supposed to happen. I don't know what to do with that. And I was like, well, okay.
And I think in time, God will reveal that to you too.
Right. And that's what I said. I said, I guess you'll show me whatever I'm supposed to do at whatever point. But that also honestly helped me because I was like, really like, you got to come up off my neck, man. I was like, this is too much. Like, I'm doing everything, you know. I even started going back to church. I got the saints praying over me.
They laying hands on me in church. Oh, God.
I was like, I've been doing my Bible study. You know, that ain't changed. But I was like, I'm going the extra mile now. And, you know, I was like giving money to homeless people. I'm making my business to get a couple extra dollars out the ATM. You hungry? Here you go. I'm trying. But, you know, in all seriousness, it's been a hard year. And I always tell people are like, oh, are you okay? No, I'm not okay. But I'm working on it and I will be okay.
You're making it. You know,
I really will be.
Yeah. I mean, that's why I said when I called to check on you and I heard your story, I was like, I just think that this would bless somebody else. I think everything that we go through is a testimony for somebody else.
Right. And I hope that it does because, I mean, there's so much. I mean, I could probably talk for more. Like, there's so much that I have learned and I have grown and I've been blessed with, thank God, people in my life who know God and love God and are not ashamed about loving God and, you know, speaking on his word. One of the first, I mean, like my stepdaughter literally is a godsend. She is literally a godsend. I mean, she, from jump, I called her when my husband started to decline his health. And when I realized for real, I said, something is not right. It's hard to talk about because he changed. And he was not the person we knew him to be. And what was hard about that is that only me and my kids saw it.
Right.
So nobody else got to see this side of him. And anybody that knew him would never believe that this is the same person we're talking about. And you and I talked about that, like how, you know, sometimes when when their health is declining, in his case, he ended up getting dementia. But we didn't know that, or I didn't know it until I realized,
right,
this
was fucking,
I was like, this, no. I was like, something I had to fight at that hospital for them to even look into the fact that he has started to get dementia. And then, because, you know, I'm like, this is not my husband. Like, my husband is funny. He's nice. He's patient. Like, he is patient. You know, he loves his kids. He would never say the things that he's been saying to us. He would never put hands on me. Like, he wouldn't try and do things to harm himself. Like, that's not my husband. So, you know, in me trying to get other family members on his side to understand that, I was really met with, like, nah, that's just, you know, it's your fault. It's the kid's fault. I'm like, what? No, that's, you know, and at the time, my youngest stepdaughter was just not in the picture. She kind of like kept her distance, and I won't even get into that. But she, you know, me and her, we would chit chat every now and again. I called up and said, "Look, Dad's real sick," and he had been asking about her because, you know, I think he knew. He just kind of missed June, blah blah blah. So I said, he wants to see you. I have to take him to the hospital because he's having a lot of health problems. So once I had a discussion with her, and she came to me and she said, I ask you one thing, what are you going to do if X, Y, and Z happens? We talked about it, and she said, I got your back.
Thank God.
100%. And it was just all I needed to hear, that I had somebody who understood what he was going through, how I was feeling, and that I was going to be met with tough choices and decisions that I never wanted to make, I was not prepared to make. And when I say that she led my hand, she held my hand, and from a spiritual and Christian perspective, helped guide me through. And I can't even imagine having to do this, and this is her dad. The strength that she had to help me get through this, it just came from somewhere else. Because I'm saying, well, this is your dad. Like,
right.
You know what I mean? And she stood right by me when I was in the hospital and I had my seizure. She did not leave my side. She
was there for you.
She was there for me. And I couldn't be more grateful. So it's just a good feeling to have people in my life who know God and trust Him. And I pull a lot of strength from people like that. Because like I said, even though I'm sitting here thinking, you love God and you read your Bible and, you depend on Him saying He's going to do what He's going to do. Yeah, He will. It's just not going to be the way that you think. And that's what I've learned. And, and then, like I said, the surrendering is such a powerful thing. Just to kind of give yourself over to God and be able to trust and lean on Him in a way you never had to before. And it had to happen so that I could go closer to God and, walk in, my spiritual journey. And I don't think it makes me like a perfect Christian. I am not a perfect Christian.
I mean, we all strive every day. You know what
they always say, God's still working on me.
Still working on me.
Still working on me. I made a joke with my some of the ladies, my church aunties, and I said, they're like, well, what's something that I think one of the questions, when we're doing our grief counseling is like, when we were on the topic of anger, like, what anger you still holding on? I'm ready to knock and buck. I said, because people have done stuff to me, and it made my husband upset, and it was just not right. And he's in his final days and in his final moments, and, they coming for me and being physical with me. And I didn't ask for that. And, I'm just here trying to, let everybody have their goodbyes, and I was like, I still want to knock and buck. I said, but no. I said, no, I better than that. It's just not even my energy to be that way. I said, but I want to. So, I was just joking. I said, I said, yeah, God's still working on me. I said, y'all know the nice Keisha, quiet Keisha, but I was like, now Nicole, that's my middle name. It was right. Nicole. She
when she show up.
My husband used to joke because sometimes when I would get amped up or angry, like, Nicole, you need to calm down. Calm down, Nicole. Because I would get just fired up sometimes. But I just I'm glad that I'm going through this. It's hard. And it's not easy. It's not comfortable. A lot of times I don't like it. But I am learning. And the anger that I had towards my husband is gone. Is dissipated.
That's good.
So when
that's what I was saying. Trust the process.
Trust the process. Because when we had we had to, the way I kind of got to the point, like this last, week of him being alive, he didn't know what was going on. He had already flatlined once. And so they wanted to try and figure out, did he have a brain injury? And they were like, oh, we're not getting readings of that. And I'm like looking at them and looking at him. I'm like, that man is not my husband anymore. Like, he was telling me he was having conversations with my grandmother. And he was like, oh, he's like, babe, we got to go. And he's trying to get out the bed. I was like, where are you going? He's like, well, Miss Kitty, who's my grandmother, that's what we call my grandmother. He's like, she telling me to, come on, let's get in the car. I said, you tell her I said, you can't go anywhere right now. And tell her stop being so bossy. I said, you can't go anywhere right now. That was probably like a month before he passed away when that happened. He had flatline. But I knew my husband was in two places. He had, he would just bring things up that either only he and I knew, but in the way he was referencing it, it was otherworldly. It was not anything that would make sense for what would happen here. I just knew it. And he's spoken a lot of metaphors. My husband was a very direct person. He cut no cars. He was just like, he was almost speaking poetically. It was in another way so that I could have that last moment where he just apologized for everything. Not just that he had to, pass away. So, that also helps me too, because I also know that I've had a gift of receiving messages for a very, very long time. And it went away. For whatever reason, it went away. My grandmother would always be like, girl, you got the gift because I got it too. And I didn't know what she meant, And then I would just start just like seeing things, like getting messages and receiving messages, and then, being able to see it happen in real time. And so I think that's just another way of God saying, I'm here. Like, you have this gift. You have a gift of discernment. Maybe you'll be more open to receiving these messages now. So I'm taking it all in, and just staying mindful that it's work.
It's work.
It's work. And it's good work. Because it's for God and for his purpose. And, it's something that I asked for. And I'm working on receiving all of that. And I want to be able to receive it because it's only good that can come from it. It's only good that can come from it. And if, losing my husband, is the biggest lesson in all of this, so that, it drew me closer to God and I have a better understanding of God's purpose in my life and how to just be a steward and, of his word, then that's where I am. That's where I am. That's my lesson.
Well, we want to thank everybody for tuning in tonight. We hope that something that Keisha shared tonight will bless someone. And we want to just say, we'll see you next time. Bye.